All right, welcome back to WMAC Now with your host Chuck Stevenson, coming at you with a fight review. We're going to Paris, France for Ares FC 18 Women's Bantamweight Championship vacant title. Gisele Moreira coming in at 12-5, taking on Rizlen Zouak coming in at 7-5. Now these two fought once before in 2021, with Moreira winning via TKO due to body punches. So they're coming back. They're meeting again this time with the vacant Ares title on the line. Let's get into it. First round, Rizlen punched her way to the clinch. They exchanged knees and separated. A lot of back and forth footwork by Zouak to make Gisele miss a lot while she landed her own punches and kicks. And then there was more clinch knees while they battled for wrist control, which we saw repeated a lot in this fight, with Zouak on the outside. Second round, a fast clinch broken by a Zouak knee. Zouak largely stayed outside Moreira's range. Zouak did get a trip takedown, but let her up and immediately clinched with her. And Gisele tried to land a throw takedown, but it was reversed by Zouak, who applied her weight, had like a sprawl on her and was just really putting her weight on Gisele before letting her up. There was some more clinch work with Zouak in control. There was a ref separation though, due to a lack of activity, and another clinch with some body kicks thrown in by Zouak as well. And she landed a nice spinning back elbow at the break of one of the clinches. Third round, Moreira was frustrated by Zouak staying outside her range. They clinched, some punches, and Zouak elbowed and they separated. Largely, Moreira missed a lot with her strikes. A big knee by Zouak to enter a clinch, and some elbows by Zouak as well. There's another clinch heavy round, but Zouak did get a hip toss takedown to finish off the round. So we go into the fourth round, the championship rounds. Twice Zouak backed Moreira up to the cage with punches, and Gisele tried to chase Zouak, but Zouak used her footwork to evade. Zouak did land a nice body kick at one point. Both were landing some nice knees in the clinch. Now, Moreira did finally get a takedown right into Zouak's guard, but Rizlen was able to get back up by using the cage. Zouak landed a low blow when she was throwing some knees against the fence, and Moreira got time to recover. And then there was a takedown attempt by Gisele, but it got stuffed. So we went to the final round, fifth round. Zouak largely stayed on the outside at range. Then she would dart forward to attack with strikes. She actually managed to stun Moreira at one point and kind of tripped her, but Moreira stayed down, kind of butt scooted a little bit, which allowed her some time to recover. Referee stood her up. Then there were some more clinch knees landed by Zouak, and by this point, Moreira was exhausted, and Zouak largely decided to, use her footwork to stay on the outside to close the fight. So it went to the judges, and watching the fight, really no surprise, all three gave it to Rizlen Zouak, 50-45. She is the new Ares FC Bantamweight champion. There were some major improvements by Zouak in this fight. From her footwork to her striking to her clinch work, just a lot of major improvements. I've watched a lot of her fights, and this was the best that she has ever looked. And it was against a fighter who previously had been able to finish her. Moreira was largely frustrated by Zouak's footwork. She just couldn't adjust and was basically lost on the feet. Just kept trying to come forward, and then she would get driven back, and then Zouak would be coming forward, and Moreira was largely forced to just go backwards. And she couldn't adjust to it at all. And she just lacked a plan B. It seemed like there was no plan B. She was just going to come forward and throw strikes like she did in the first fight. But once she wasn't able to do that, once Zouak was able to outwork her on her feet, she just seemed lost and had nothing to go to other than, trying to land some power punches. Which, you can tell that Zouak and her team really studied the last fight. And they even adapted what worked for Moreira in the first fight, and Zouak took that and applied it in this fight, which was striking to the body. Multiple times in the fight, you would see Zouak, lean forward to strike at the body, to punch the body, and she would throw body kicks to the body as well. Every kick she threw, I think, was to the body, and she didn't throw any kicks, but pretty much every kick she threw was to the body. So Zouak, rather than getting, hammered to the body herself, said, I'm going to do that to her this time. And she did. Really adapted really well to, she took what worked for Moreira and adapted it to her own game. And here's the sad part about this fight. So Zouak finally coming into her own in MMA, but unfortunately, she's already 37. And when the fighter's already that old, I doubt she's going to be on the radar of any of the bigger promotions, which for Bantamweight, that's the UFC. She is on Fight Pass all the time now with the Eris, and that is, the pipeline to the UFC pretty much. But at 37 years old, I doubt UFC is really going to give her a second look, which is sad because she looked really good in this fight. It's just UFC's not going to want a 37-year-old fighter, so she's probably going to just finish out her career at Eris. Anyway, let's talk things to work on from Moreira. Well, I already mentioned she really lacked a plan B in this fight. You can't go into a fight with just a plan A. Even if it's a rematch that you won the first time, you've got to expect that your opponent is going to make changes to their game. But for Moreira, just completely lacked a plan B. Also, needs to learn how to cut off the cage. Zouak's footwork wasn't very complicated in this fight, but just Moreira clearly did not know how to cut off the cage. For Zouak, I thought she kind of lacked a killer instinct here. I think there were a few times when she could have gone harder for the finish, especially in, the fifth round. She had her stunned, and she stunned her on her feet, kind of swept her to the ground, but then chose not to follow her. Just why? Why not? Go for the finish. That's what people want to see in fights, especially in title fights. People want to see finishes. Now, granted, she got the win, and that's the most important thing, but you need that killer instinct as a champion. For fights to make, I'm not really sure for either of them. I haven't really been looking at the bantamweight division outside the UFC lately, so no fights to make for right now. Anyway, those are my thoughts on this fight. Rizlen Zouak defeating Gisele Moreira, avenging a previous loss via unanimous decision. You can find the fight on UFC Fight Pass. Go check it out. Let me know your thoughts on the fight in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button. While you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to Wmma Now, the best, most complete women's mixed martial arts dedicated platform on YouTube. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.